Have you been operating in survival mode? Today we're talking to America's Supermom, who shares her self-care journey. LaChelle is a mother to 15 children and a woman who suffered from depression for more than 13 years. She says self-care isn't selfish, it's a necessity. So please stick around and enjoy the show. Welcome, my friends, to another episode of Coffee with Tea. I'm your host, Tonia, and I'm excited because I have LaChelle Adkins on here, and she is America's Supermom. And we're going to figure out first, how did that come about? And we're going to then talk about mental wellness. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Ms. LaChelle Adkins, America's Supermom. Welcome.
Oh, thank you so much, Tonia, for having me. I am excited about this conversation. I have just enjoyed us being able to connect through Facebook, and I feel like I've already known you for quite some time. We had quite a nice conversation the first time we met.
Yes.
So I'm glad to be here today.
It's a pleasure to have you here because, like I said, and I always want to shout out because you are a fellow YouTube sister. So shout out. We always love to collaborate with you. Yes. So we are small YouTubers collaborating. That's what we love to do. So,
absolutely.
Ms. LaChelle, how's everything with your the COVID-19 and everything like going that? And I know there's a special people that don't understand. There's a special uniqueness about why you're America's Supermom. So ask you how this whole COVID-19, you give a little insight, they'll understand why I'm asking.
Absolutely. So yes, COVID-19 looks a little tight quarters for us. We have 15 children total, and 10 of them are with us now during this quarantine, trying to work it out, get back to normal. So yeah, that's what life is like for us. And now we are transitioning because in just a few weeks, our kids are going to be going back to school, but it's going to be back to the e-learning. So they're going to be actually educating from the house. So, that's just another can of worms, so to speak. But yeah, so that's a little bit about our story, okay, with the house full of people, right?
Right. And like I said, we connect. I saw your video on YouTube, and that was the first thing that popped out. I was like, oh, I've got to talk to Miss LaChelle. I was like, how do you manage? I can barely do with, well, I don't even have, I had 3. I have an empty house now.
Which is good. Look, I don't even know if I'm ever going to see an empty house. Our kids range in age from 6 to 30. So again, like I said, we have 10 of them that are still here. And it's just funny. It's like, I don't know what emptiness is, but the best example I got was just this past school year, even though it wasn't a full year, right? Because this COVID-19 happened in March and everybody came home. But my only experience with empty nest was them all being in school all day. So this was my first opportunity in 27 years to be at home during the day while my kids were in school.
Well, bless your heart. I give you props, mad props on that one.
So yeah, prayer. That's what I say, right?
Mm-hmm. Right. So we're going to talk more about mental health wellness, and I know that has got to be really a big topic for what you do and how you deal with the children and stuff like that. So how did you really get into talking about this? What's the foundation, I guess you say, for your mental wellness program?
Well, for me, I was my own demise. That's pretty much how it happened. I suffered with depression for a period of 13 years. So just a little bit of history was I was an only child. So my mom was one of 12 and she was older, and she felt she helped raise her younger siblings, and her parents got a divorce when she was a teenager. And so she felt, wow, it was hard. She saw her mom be a single mother, and she wanted to leave that type of life, those humble beginnings. So education was her key. So needless to say, fast forward, she graduated from college and that was the road that she put me on, was really seeking that academic achievement and, education being your key to a good life. So, as a child, I was always driven and competitive, academic success, honor roll, gifted classes, and things of that nature. So, when I met my husband and we decided to have a family, I just thought, well, I'll just apply these same principles, with our family. And growing up an only child, my mom was always working as far as I can remember. That was one of her things. So I never experienced her going on field trips, being a class mom or anything like that. And that was one of the things that I longed for. So even though I was on the career track, I graduated with a marketing degree. My husband got his degree, but I just wanted to be home with the kids. So I didn't really have an example though. So the only example I had was the soap operas, and they had nannies and were traveling, and that definitely wasn't what was going on with us, right? So I really struggled with how that dynamic was going to work because all my friends and colleagues were career oriented. I had no leadership of what a stay home mom looked like. So I struggled with the people pleasing, feeling like if I work hard enough, then it can be successful, and just not having any kind of plan of self care or anything like that. So during this 13 years, I was hospitalized 3 times. And so after my third hospitalization, I just, one, didn't want to have a fourth one. And I just got tired of being a victim. That's just the best way I could describe it, because I felt like this situation I was powerless in. It was like, woe is me. It was very defeating, no motivation. And this period of depression for me was not that I was not accomplishing anything. So I was taking my kids to soccer practice, being involved in PTO, class mom, going on field trips, but I just wasn't fulfilled. So after that last hospitalization, I just went on this journey of self-discovery, stopped watching the news, got off social media, and really began to ask myself the questions: what do I want? Who am I really? Because I had lost my identity. I was so busy looking outward and seeking outward validation that I lost who I was. So I went on this journey. I created a strategy that I call Fresh Start. And that was the basis of me getting out of that depression and maintaining a life that's depression free. So this is how I got started in the coaching. And then during this pandemic, I did a lot more coaching through Facebook groups, helping moms who were struggling with managing their workload and teaching from home. So I went to the drawing board again, and I was like, you know what, this fresh start is good, but it's like a plan after something happens. What can I do that's proactive? So I came up with a strategy that I call Smile for Wellness. And SMILE is an acronym for 5 areas that we need to work on daily to make sure that we don't have this downward spiral, or, it gets that far gone into depression. So those areas are your sleep, your mood, your inner voice, laughter, and energy. So in my case, with just my own reflection, each of those times I was hospitalized, I didn't say, honey, I've had too much going on, I need help. Every case where I was hospitalized, my husband sought intervention. So for me, that was a problem because I wasn't even in tune with myself enough to know that things were not right. So now with this Smile for Wellness, it is a beginning for many people who feel like something's off. They don't know what it is. These are some markers that they can begin the journey to start that deeper look underneath the hood to kind of figure out what is it that I could be working on that can be, giving them a call that where they can work on these things and ask for help, get a coach, get a mentor, a therapist, or talk to a friend or family or somebody like that. So that's a little bit about my story.
Well, it's a very inspirational story. So what would be your, I know you have the aspects of SMILE. But
Mm-hmm.
what's the number one thing that people really have to start paying attention that you say is the first key that, there's something wrong? I mean, I guess they always say awareness. So how do you pick up
Right.
on
Yeah. So like just using myself for an example, I was not sleeping,
Okay.
but like 3 or 4 hours a night. This was regularly. Now, so again, I was talking about the period of 13 years. This really was the main source of sleep for me for that period of time. About 3 or 4 hours. I can count on my hand the number of times that I probably had one good night's sleep, right?
Right.
Because you factor in breastfeeding, kids not being able to sleep through the night, or in my case, my husband was a military reservist. He was an officer, so he had his obligation with the military. He worked retail, so a lot of times with his schedule, and he also is a pastor, so it required me to step in where he was gone. So he worked weekends, holidays. I mean, it was like a constant thing with him being out of the house as a provider, with me being a quote unquote 24/7 parent by myself. And
Right.
so these are the things that I was just in survival mode. I guess that's the best way to describe it. I wasn't sleeping. I could switch my mood on and off. So again, it was back to that on the outside. Every time I had to go somewhere, I was on, so to speak, where, I was the team mom that had the little snacks and stuff for the kids, or, my kids were showing up to school on time, had everything they needed. However, that was time outside the home, but at home, it was a different story. I wasn't in the best mood. I was exhausted. I felt like, as long as I pretty much stay task oriented, that I felt like it was like that whole thing. People say you're busy, but you're not productive, right? So the things that I was accomplishing still wasn't giving me that fulfillment, because it was all outward. It was not anything internal that I was really striving for. I didn't even know what my goals were. And, if somebody even asked me what my favorite color was, I probably couldn't tell them. You see
Right.
what I'm saying?
Right. So what I'm maybe if I'm understanding you correctly, a lot of the times we got the red flags, but we're so
Mm-hmm.
busy pushing them off and saying it's because of this or because of that. So, like I said, how do you? I guess I'm trying to say, how do you not know that you're giving an excuse to something and knowing that this might be a mental or a really bigger issue than we can always shove it off for everything else, but how do you know that this is really something that's maybe more than what it is?
The first thing that I would say is, there's things like, if somebody, you can begin to ask yourself these questions. What's your favorite color? What is it that you aspire to do over the next 30 days? What are some things that you're passionate about? If anybody even started to even ask me those questions, I wouldn't have an answer. I was very goal oriented, driven, competitive, but I just didn't have the bandwidth to think about myself. There was no self-care. My worth was attached to the things that I accomplished, and they were all outward, and they were things I couldn't control. So, for example, if my kids were doing good and they were on honor roll, then I was feeling good about myself. But if they had bad grades, then I was feeling bad about myself. There was everything was outward oriented. It was stuff that I couldn't control, but I wasn't in the frame of mind to realize that.
Okay,
If
I
that
think
makes sense.
it's starting to make sense. Or like I said, I apologize if it sounds like it's a repetitive question. I'm just trying to
no.
understand.
Yeah.
So it's basically coming down to your self awareness, because as a mom, we always want to do for others, but we're not taking in for ourselves. So that's basically what you're talking about.
Exactly. Had no self-awareness. And so what I was telling myself that I was doing that was good, I couldn't get enough of it but it wasn't fulfilling me because I didn't have that self-awareness. So it's like if I asked for an apple, somebody gave me one, and then I wasn't fulfilled with the apple because I really didn't want the apple. I didn't know what I wanted. You see what I'm saying?
Right,
But
right,
people were saying, oh, you should feel good about that apple. And then I'm like, well, what's wrong with me? Why do I not feel good with this apple? But then not even having the bandwidth to say, I didn't even ask for an apple. I just got this apple because everybody else said an apple would be good for me to get. You see what I'm saying?
yeah. So basically, you were pouring from an empty cup.
Empty cup. Okay, but thinking that I was not.
Right. Yeah, you know, I was listening to what you're saying, but I'm like, it wasn't clicking with me here.
Yes. Empty. I mean, empty.
Welcome, my friends. Welcome back. We had a little snag, but you know what? When there's a will, there's a way. So thank you for staying tuned with us. We're going to get this party started. So we're connected again with Miss LaChelle Adkins. She's America's Supermom, and she was giving me some great wisdom. I think the last question I had with you was, I can't remember. What was the last question?
Welcome to my world, okay? Hey,
this is why
you gotta write it down, girl. You gotta write it down. That's how I keep it together.
I think we were talking about what's the one thing that you really like to leave the audience with, and I think you were talking about being authentic and pouring from an
yes.
Yes, I was listening. I just didn't write the question.
So true. So yeah, I think the main takeaway is to be yourself and know what you're working towards for what it is that you value. So for example, you know, what kind of wife do you want to be? Not what you think people think you should be, or what kind of mom, or, you know, what kind of pastor's wife, all these different things. You want to be your own version of who you are. And I think that's really one of the things that was a hang up for me, was just that whole thing of figuring out, like, you know, am I doing what people expect out of me? I felt like I had on masks, you know, literally, and it's crazy. Now we're walking around with some masks, but I feel like I was wearing them all the time, you know, and this is why I got to the point where I didn't even know who I was anymore when I looked in the mirror, because I was so busy looking at other people's standards and not really having my own clarity about who I was and what it was that I was working towards. If that makes sense.
Oh, it makes sense. Absolutely. And like I said, I know we froze up a little bit, and we were talking a little bit more about pouring from an empty cup. And I would really love for the listeners to hear really some of the golden nuggets that you really speak about on that.
Yeah, because I think, you know, when it comes back to, you know, we want to maintain our car, we'll maintain our cell phone, you know, all these other little things that are material and outside of us, and we won't think about the care that we put for ourselves. And so that's the biggest limiting belief, is that self-care is selfish. Self-care is just a non-negotiable. It's like oxygen. It is a true fundamental building block in you being a whole and complete person. You know, so just like you wouldn't drive from here to Texas without putting gas in your car, because you know you're not going to get that far. That's the same way it should be with us in our maintaining ourselves, so that we can perform at our optimal position, rather than being in a state of scarcity and things like that. You know, we should be living in abundance, and that comes from being able to be in a place to where you can fill yourself up of what it is that you need, and then that overflow is what you're able to share with others. So if I want to love myself, then I can show love to other people after I know what love is for myself. You know, same thing with friendship or patience. You got to first use yourself in that way to gauge what that is, and then you can pour out to others.
Right. Yeah, it took me a while to figure that out, and I think you know, Oprah touched about, you know, it's like you're so full, then you can pour out to others, and I think a lot of people don't understand that, you know. So that's I said that's a golden nugget right there.
And that's the biggest hang up that we have, is that, you know, we go outward to try to receive what only can be solved inside. And so this is why we're unfulfilled, because we're seeking, oh, I want to be helpful to people. I want to be able to do whatever, I want to be seen as nice. I want to be the mom who's organized and all these things that are outward, right? And so what happens is, I know in my case, I was thinking that I was projecting helpfulness, love, but then it came with anxiety, because it's like I'm telling somebody yes, but then that means I have to get up earlier. I have to be ready. I have to do whatever behind the scenes to look that part for whatever role that I was thinking I was helping for, right? And so then I didn't have the stamina to maintain it. So then I'm tired from that. Then I'm, giving to other people, but not taking the time to fill myself up and even coming from a positive place.
Right. So, like I said, it's amazing how just, that key awareness can change your life.
Can change your life. Yeah. And the life change came when the fact that I didn't have to seek the validation from other people.
Ooh, can you say that again?
Now,
can you say that again?
Yeah, didn't have to seek that validation. So now it's like, even we joked about before we got on this call was like, okay, well, I got my little headband on today. My daughter got me this the other day. She came in because, they embraced the title, America's Supermom. So she's like, Mom, I found this little headband for you. It's, American themed. And so, that's about me building a relationship and, being transparent. Today, hey, I have on a little headband for the interview, so it's like, it's being able to embrace who you are and not have to feel that, oh, I've got to do this interview. I have to look a certain way or I have to say the right thing. It's just, today is a part of me being able to express who I am, however that is. I should be the same wherever I'm at, so there's such a joy in being able to not feel like I have to hide some part of me. I can be that same person, whether I see you at the grocery store, at church, or in my own house. Now, what you see around me might change, right? Like I tell people, hey, one day you might come in, this house is spick and span because we just cleaned up. 10 minutes later, my kids then ran through the house, shoes in the middle of the floor. You see what I'm saying? So as long as you know that, then we good.
Right. Oh, Miss LaChelle, it's been a pleasure talking to you. And like I said, I want to extend this invitation and have you come back again. We can talk more about this.
Absolutely. I would love to.
So my number one question is, where can people find more information about you, your services, and what you do?
Yes. Now, I am on YouTube, as you said, and then Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Pinterest, and YouTube. So, yeah, that's where you can find me.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I also want to say thank you again for being here. And we're going to be transparent. That's what I guess the biggest thing is just be transparent. You're going to mess up. You're going to do great things, but hey, it's a journey.
Hey, that's the thing. Nothing is perfect. Because if you're seeking perfection, you're not going to find it. Okay. So you got to make the best of what you got. And just, I think you take a lot of pressure off of yourself and other people, because if we have this whole thing, I call it the highlight reel, right? The highlight reel is the edited and all this stuff, right? And so people begin to seek after something that's polished and finished and perfected, right? And so these are the things that stop people from getting started, because they'll say, oh, I want to have a talk show like Tonia, but look at her. She is this, she asks the right questions. Her lighting is right. So they won't get started because they're measuring themselves up to your highlight reel. And, it's the behind the scenes stuff that people don't get a chance to see that. And so they create you bigger than what they envision. And so that's the thing that stops them from even getting started.
Right. Like I said, you have a wealth of knowledge, and we're just getting started.
Well, thank you.
we can go on. So I want to end this right here and say thank you for being on. Thank you very much. We can continue this conversation another time.
Yes.
I want to thank those who tuned in to today's episode. Remember, feedback is always welcome. Emails with any guests and show ideas that you'd like to see. All of the comments or all the links that LaChelle mentioned will be posted in the comments. Best thing you can do is like, share, and subscribe. And remember, take things in stride, go with the flow, and create your own path. And again, LaChelle, for being here, appreciate it. And I thank all my listeners for tuning in and checking out this episode of Coffee with Tea. We'll see you back here next time. Share with us. What was one of your takeaways from today's show? Post your answers in the comments. Hi everyone, this is Tonia popping in again to say thank you for listening to today's show. Coffee with Tea interviews are always free, and if you're enjoying the wisdom and insights that's being shared, please consider showing your support. By all means, buy me a coffee or become a supporter. Links are posted in the comments. And again, thank you for tuning in.